can I just, for the sake of clarity, because this has come up a couple of times previously, the objectives are about audience engagement and business model development. Does that mean, either Hasan or Richard or both, does that mean artistic innovation isn't allowed? Does it mean it's included? Does it mean it's a necessary part of these things working? And is it being successful to the fund?
Shall I go? This fund is focused on supporting organisations to be able to deepen and extend their audiences and to develop new business models that will help to identify and generate new income sources. If you choose to do that through means of artistic innovation, so new forms of art that will help you to achieve audience development or new business models, that's great. But if it doesn't, it's out of scope.
So it can be, so there are projects clearly where great artistic innovation will lead to audience development and could lead to business model innovation. But either way, it's got to lead to audience development and business model innovation. It's not to be art to art itself.
That's right, and that's not because from the Arts Council point of view we're not interested in innovation and experimentation. It's just that this fund is particularly focused on aspects of what we're trying to do. The Arts Council supports arts organisations and artists to do that work through both its national portfolio, through grants for the arts, and through the work that we do to support the sector. But this particular fund is focused on the way in which we can support development of audiences and new business models in real life.
So just to bring that to its conclusion, the £20 million fund will have some of the same criteria, but that won't be absolutely the same criteria as this fund. I understand. Is that right?
Well, we're working on that at the moment, and to some extent, how we shape that those further funds will be to some extent dependent on how we get on with this R&D fund. It's a necessary precursor to the next phase.
Just briefly on that, I mean, I think one thing we shouldn't be under no illusion here is that even kind of fundamental concepts like innovation and research and development are problematic sort of in the arts and culture context, in the sense that there isn't as mature and deep understanding of what innovation and R&D means compared to, say, in science and technology context where certainly NESTA does a lot of its work. So I think certainly my own experience of being the work we do with the National Theatre is that it's actually quite although the focus of this programme has to be on the audience engagement and provided definitions of what that means on the website and business models, but it's actually very difficult to think of significant innovations in those areas which have not which have not sort of engaged in some sense with the art form. So it's to some extent, I think one will see the benefit of hindsight. I suspect that some of the projects that we support may well end up making significant contributions in that artistic area too.
Okay, thank you. Questions, thoughts?
My name is Darren Tiffany. I represent South Asian Arts, an organisation based in Leeds. This is a question for Hasan specifically. Hasan, you outlined some of the areas that this fund will cover, things like social media, distribution, etc. I'm just intrigued, are you welcoming projects that cross all of these or some of these areas, and is that something that you welcome in the application?
Yeah, so these are six pretty broad categories, as you can probably tell from the words that we've used, and the scoping document plus a summary of the open consultation exercise is available on the website if you want to get a sense of why we ended up there. I mean, believe it or not, when you did, we asked a very large number of people what they thought the priority areas should be, the thematic areas of this fund, and actually there are some patterns that emerge, and we try to sort of group them under these six. So I'm aware of the fact that in one of these, we could have built an R&D fund around any one of these things, quite an entire programme, let alone a pilot. If organisations feel that they've got propositions which will enhance our understanding across these thematic areas, and that's absolutely welcome. But they should certainly feel that organisation should feel compelled that they have to some sense sort of touch all of these, because it's a very broad category.
Okay, right, thank you. Okay, Dan, please.
So two questions. One is new business models. Is it all about new income streams, or can it be about eliminating cost base and reducing costs?
Okay, let's take that one first.
Yes, it is. It can be about that, and in fact, one of the themes is specifically focused on that particular area around how you can do things more efficiently as an organisation to save costs through using digital technology.
Thank you. And the other thing is a sort of slight concern in terms of finding a technology partner for organisations that aren't necessarily experienced with working with a technology partner. I mean, most organisations have probably experienced difficulty in assessing the credibility of technology partner, but it's quite a short time frame to actually engage with someone in a meaningful way. Is there any kind of advice or scope for, within the process for sort of brokering that relationship, I suppose, is the question.
Yeah. So the main way, I mean, this is something that came up, you can imagine, in scoping, the extent to which we were going to build in a development program into the R&D program. So this is to sort of something to get everyone up onto a level playing field and then engage in the process. We're not really what we're doing in this fund, aside from, I mean, really these digital days, and there's only 5 of them, we're putting all material online. These are our key ways, our main ways of sort of trying to essentially get arts organisations and technology providers in the same room together. The other thing we're doing, it's not a coincidence that we've chosen the locations that we have done here. In effect, we've got a number of champions for this fund in the arts and cultural sector. So we're hoping, our first event we held in NESTA, the second event was held at Watershed Media last week. So it's not a coincidence that these locations have been chosen as their local hubs, as it were, for the sorts of people that we want to connect. Aside from that, I mean, Anthony, in previous, in the first 2 digital days, there's been a bit of discussion about the sort of social media and social networks that are available to allow, which have been used previously by arts organisations trying to connect up with other technology companies. Is there anything
we were talking a little bit about that in Bristol in terms of it kind of depends on exactly what sort of area you're looking at. But if, for instance, you were looking at apps, let's take an example, you're looking at sort of mobile apps activity, there are sort of pre-existing online networks which will allow you to post the spec of your app and get a bunch of people who will quote and give responses to sort of how they think they will build your app. As you say, there may then be a question about how you know whether they're right or not. Which comes back to Hasan's point about either the kind of regional hubs, the NPOs in digital media. There are a number of those around. Lighthouse in Brighton, Watershed in Bristol, Broadway in Nottingham, Fact in Liverpool, Cornerhouse in Manchester, who are specialists, but also lots of other funded organisations in this area. And digital media creative industries companies. Companies who are in the web space or in the web and telly space particularly have done a lot of work like this. That's kind of where I'm from. I haven't really introduced myself. I'm a digital creative head of a company and a chair of one of the NPOs and an arts trustee at ENO as well. So I'm sort of across the boundaries. And there are a few people like that kicking around. Not me, I'm out of this gig because I'm chairing. But there are a few people like that in this part of the world as well. I talked to the film Creative England, whichever bit of Creative England is going to be here. They've been pretty strong in this area. It used to be Film Birmingham and those sorts of guys.
And the other thing that you say is, in our experience, particularly this project working in Manchester with large numbers of digital media businesses, that and our expectation is, and we're encouraging technology providers and companies to go out themselves, as it were, and approach arts and cultural organisations. So one would hope that these days, and the material that we're putting on the website are not just resources for arts and cultural organisations, they're also resources for technology providers that are basically looking to get engaged with the project and actually seek out business. So, and that is, we did see that, and we were quite overwhelmed by the extent to which that happened in Manchester. And my hope is that through this fund, but time will tell, that the same thing will happen.
And I suppose the other thing that came up in London, particularly to just feedback, is people seeing this fund in the context of the wider Arts Council £20 million fund sort of logic, and looking at this maybe as the starting point of the process, and maybe this isn't the right time, but actually you meet the people here, you get thinking about it here, and actually that gets you to a place where you're more readily able to work with a partner inside the bigger fund. which is that thing about this being, it's not exactly a mini version of Big Fund, but it has some of those components. And I know people in both London and Birmingham have been saying, well, we're kind of nearly ready, but we're not quite ready for September. But actually we know this is coming along in a minute, so we're going to use this as a sort of rolling start to make sure people are focusing within the organisation on digital, that sort of stuff. Okay, we've got one more here, and then jump there, please.
Hello, Peter McCluskey from Audiences Central. Just checking that I've got it right. Are you looking for an application from a consortium of organisations, some may be more experienced than others, or is it from a single organisation, or is it a mixture of both?
It's a partnership with a technology provider is essential. So in that sense, it's a consortium, if you will. It's not just one organisation. That said, we're very aware of the fact that if you do any work in the digital area, the idea that you can classify all organisations as either arts organisations or technology companies, or indeed researchers, is actually simplistic. And in fact, there are some organisations which straddle all three, let alone being part technology companies. So what you'll see is that we've really tried as hard as we possibly could within the funding constraints to push out the envelope of the definitions of these. And what we're already finding is where, since the call has been live, that there's some interesting partnerships that are emerging. So it is a consortium call, but it's very, very flexible to try and maximise the opportunities. We're not insisting on researchers, just to be clear again, because there's been a bit of confusion, I think, on this, that do you have to identify research teams in the process? And the answer is no. In fact, we've built in an infrastructure, an R&D infrastructure with the AHRC, which means you just don't have to worry about that at all at this stage.
Can I just add on that? Because we're trying to encourage collaboration between those organisations which are more experienced in working with digital technology and those who are less experienced, applications from organisations where they build in that kind of relationship and partnership will receive extra weighting to the assessment that we do of those applications. So we're encouraging very much bringing people who have less experience along the journey with us.
Great.
Tim Wall from Birmingham City University, and I'm just picking up this thing about the relationship between the arts and cultural organisations and universities. You've said that you've got a stage to put those sorts of groups together. What about those organisations who've already started development projects with universities? Is any element of that existing partnership allowed to proceed, or is it only the people that you will speed date with that are allowed?
One thing is that, a couple of things. One of the things is that when we were consulting this, when we were sort of putting this programme together, there was a clear sense that some arts and cultural organisations have established relationships with universities, often in the technology area, as opposed to in the evaluation sort of research area that we're getting at, but in the technology area. And in many other cases, those relationships didn't exist. The reality is we don't have data. We don't really have a consistent picture of that, and that's one of the nice things that we're getting through this fund, is insofar as we can attract interest, we're getting a much better sense actually of what the existing relationships are between arts and cultural organisations and universities in this area. But what we didn't want to do was sort of, as it were, load the dice in the favour of organisations that did have those existing relationships. And what I would say is two things. One is that where those relationships are of a technology nature, which they often are, a university or an individual academic can be the technology provider in this relationship. So this partnership doesn't have to be between, it can be the technology provider. It's not a technology company per se. It could be a technology provider, which is an academic in an individual institution that has that relationship. So that's one thing, so they can come in that way. And the second thing to say is, although we're not spending a huge amount of time talking about it at today's event, there's a lot of information available on the website, but the collaborative workshop sandpit sort of event that we've got it's quite an intensive process. I mean, it's certainly not just a speed dating idea, and it's certainly not us imposing as research funders who should work with who. The idea very much actually is to spend 2 days really focusing on how you can convert a testable proposition into rigorous research design. And this sort of stuff is fairly new, I have to say. So we hope our expectation is that some amazing things will come out of this, and that's certainly based on the bits of R&D that I've done with these sorts of partnerships in the past. But it's not. It isn't sort of a speed dating sort of type service.
No.
No.
It's completely reasonable response. In fact, we had in one of the other events we had somebody who was coming from a university context and he thought he might actually bid twice, once as a technology provider and once as an arts institution organisation, which shows you the flexibility, and that was kind of deemed in scope. These boundaries, including the thematic boundaries, they're kind of pretty blurred, aren't they, in all sorts of ways.